My name is Maria Alvarez. I'm 57 years old. And that night, at the charity gala, I saw my own daughter laughing at my scars. Her friends were laughing too. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces right there in that glittering ballroom, surrounded by people in designer gowns and expensive suits, all pretending to care about charity and kindness while my own child mocked the very flesh that had protected her. But when her best friend walked in behind me and saw my scars, she froze. The color drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug, and she whispered words that made the entire room go silent. Words that would change everything. Before I tell you what happened, please like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, because what I'm about to share might change how you see scars forever. I stood there in the doorway of that ballroom, my hands trembling, my throat tight with a pain I hadn't felt in years. The kind of pain that goes deeper than skin, deeper than bone. The kind that settles in your soul and refuses to leave. The charity gala was supposed to be a celebration. A night of giving back, of honoring those who'd made sacrifices for others. The irony wasn't lost on me. There I was, a woman who'd sacrificed everything, standing in a room full of people who threw money at problems but couldn't recognize real sacrifice when it was standing right in front of them. My daughter, Isabella, was at the center of a group of young women. All of them in their late 20s, all of them polished and perfect, with their smooth skin and their careful makeup and their lives that had never known real pain. They were sipping champagne and laughing, that high-pitched laughter that cuts through everything else in a room. And then I heard it. Clear as day. God, I can't believe my mother actually came, Isabella said, her voice dripping with disgust. And look at what she's wearing. You can see everything. I was wearing a sleeveless dress. Elegant, I thought. Appropriate for the occasion. But it showed my arms. It showed my scars. The scars that ran from my shoulders down to my wrists like twisted rivers of pain and memory. One of her friends giggled. Are those burn scars? Don't remind me, Isabella said, and I could hear the shame in her voice. The shame of me. Her own mother. I'd been asking her to cover up for years. But does she listen? No. She has to make everything about her trauma, her story, her pain. The words hit me like physical blows. Each one landing with precision, designed to hurt, designed to shame me the way she claimed I shamed her. Another friend chimed in, I get it, but there are procedures for that kind of thing, right? Surely she could have done something about it by now. That's what I keep telling her, Isabella laughed, that bitter laugh I'd been hearing more and more over the years. But no, she wants to wear them like some kind of badge of honor. It's embarrassing. Every event I bring her to, people stare. They whisper. Do you know how that makes me look? How that makes her look. Not how it made me feel. Not what I'd been through. Not what those scars represented. Just how it affected her image, her reputation, her perfect little life. I wanted to turn around and leave. I wanted to run out of that ballroom and never come back. But my feet wouldn't move. I stood there, frozen, listening to my daughter tear me apart in front of her friends, reducing decades of pain and survival to nothing more than an inconvenience, an embarrassment, a flaw in her perfect picture. Honestly, Isabella continued, and I could hear her warming to her topic now, getting more animated. Sometimes I wish she'd just stayed home. Is that terrible? I love her, I do, but I can't take her anywhere without feeling like I have to explain, to apologize, to make excuses for why my mother looks like that. Like that. Like a thing. Like something broken and ugly and wrong. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. Not in front of these people who wouldn't understand, who couldn't understand what these scars meant, what they represented, what they'd cost me. I was about to turn away, to leave with whatever dignity I had left, when I heard footsteps behind me. Quick, light footsteps and high heels clicking against the marble floor. "Isabella," a voice called out. Young, bright, friendly. "Sorry I'm late, the traffic was insane, Anne." The voice stopped. Abruptly. Completely. I turned slightly and saw a young woman standing there, frozen mid-step. She was staring at my arms, at my scars, her eyes wide with something I couldn't quite name. Not disgust. Not pity. Something else. Something like recognition. Something like shock. Her hand came up to her mouth, trembling. Her eyes filled with tears. "Those scars," she whispered, and the ballroom seemed to hold its breath. "I know those scars. Let me take you back. Let me tell you about the night my life changed forever. The night these scars became part of me. The night I became someone different, someone I barely recognized when I finally looked in a mirror weeks later. It was 15 years ago. Isabella was 12 years old, just on the cusp of becoming a teenager, still my little girl in so many ways. We lived in a modest apartment in the city, just the two of us. Her father had left when she was 3, couldn't handle the responsibility of parenthood, couldn't handle being tied down. So it was me and Isabella against the world. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. During the day, I was a secretary at a law firm. At night, I cleaned office buildings. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. It kept food on the table and clothes on her back and a roof over our heads. And I was proud of that. I was proud that I could provide for my daughter, that I could give her a life, even if it wasn't the life I'd dreamed of giving her. That night, I'd come home from my day job exhausted. I had to be at my night job in 3 hours, but I wanted to spend some time with Isabella first. She'd been distant lately, pulling away the way preteens do, but I still cherished every moment I could get with her. I remember I was making dinner. Nothing fancy. Just pasta and marinara sauce, her favorite. She was in her room doing homework, and I was in our tiny kitchen, stirring the pot, thinking about how I needed to pick up her dry cleaning for her school presentation the next day, how I needed to remember to pay the electric bill, all those mundane thoughts that fill a mother's mind. That's when I smelled it. Smoke. At first, I thought I'd burned the sauce. I turned down the heat, checked the pot. Everything looked fine. But the smell was getting stronger. Acrid. Wrong. I looked toward the hallway and saw it. Gray smoke, seeping under Isabella's door like evil fingers reaching into our home. My heart stopped. Then it started racing, pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Isabella!" I screamed, and I ran. I ran down that short hallway faster than I'd ever run in my life, but it felt like moving through water, like time had slowed down and sped up all at once. I threw open her door and the smoke hit me like a wall. Thick, black, choking. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. But I could hear her. "MOM. MOM, help me." Her voice was coming from the corner of the room, by her bed. Later, they told me it was an electrical fire, faulty wiring in the walls that had been building for months, waiting for the right moment to explode into our lives and change everything. But at that moment, I didn't care what caused it. I only cared about getting to my daughter. I couldn't see her through the smoke. The heat was intense, like standing inside an oven. I could feel it on my skin, searing, burning, but I pushed forward. I called her name over and over, following her cries, following the sound of her voice. My hands hit her bed frame and I felt my way around it. The metal was hot, scorching, but I didn't let go. I found her huddled in the corner, pressed against the wall, coughing and crying. "I've got you, baby," I said, or tried to say. My throat was raw from the smoke. "I've got you." I grabbed her, pulled her close to my body, and turned back toward the door. But the fire had spread. It was everywhere now, climbing the walls, eating the curtains, consuming everything in its path. I couldn't see the door. I couldn't see anything but orange, red and black. Isabella was screaming, clinging to me, and I knew I had to get her out. I had to protect her. That's what mothers do. That's what I was born to do. I held her against my chest, wrapped my arms around her, and I ran. Ran through the flames, through the heat, through the pain that was starting to register in my brain, screaming at me to stop, to drop, to give up. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Not until she was safe. I felt the flames licking at my arms, felt my skin blistering and burning and peeling away, but I held her tighter, kept my arms wrapped around her, and used my body as a shield. I found the door somehow. Burst through it into the hallway. The smoke was everywhere now, filling our apartment, and I could hear the fire alarm finally going off, too late, always too late. I made it to the front door, fumbled with the lock with hands that were screaming in agony, hands that didn't want to work anymore, hands that were damaged in ways I couldn't even comprehend yet. We tumbled out into the hallway of our building and I collapsed. I remember laying there on the dirty carpet, still holding Isabella, and I remember checking her over frantically. "Are you hurt? Baby, are you hurt?" She was coughing, crying, terrified, but she wasn't burned. Not a single mark on her. I'd protected her. My body had taken all the damage, all the pain, all the scars. She looked at my arms then, and I saw her eyes go wide with horror. "Mom," she whispered. "Mom, your arms." I looked down and saw the damage for the first time. My skin was red and black and white all at once, blistered and weeping and wrong. So wrong. The pain hit me then, really hit me, like a freight train slamming into my consciousness. I heard sirens. Voices. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. And then everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later. The pain was indescribable. They had me on so many drugs, but nothing could completely touch it. It was like my arms were still on fire, like the flames had become part of me, living inside my skin, burning from the inside out. A nurse was there when I opened my eyes. She smiled at me, but it was a sad smile. A pitying smile. "Welcome back," she said softly. "You're going to be okay. You're going to survive this." Survive. Such a simple word. Such an inadequate word for what I was about to go through. "Isabella," I croaked, my voice barely working. "My daughter. Where is?" "She's fine," the nurse assured me quickly. "She's perfectly fine. Not a scratch on her. You saved her life, Maria. You're a hero." A hero. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like I was dying. I felt like my entire body was one open wound. The doctor came in later. Dr. Sarah Chen. I'll never forget her name. She was the one who'd worked on me in the emergency room, who'd fought to save as much of my skin as possible, who'd made the difficult decisions about treatment while I was unconscious and unable to consent. She sat down next to my bed and looked at me with eyes that had seen too much suffering, too much pain. "Maria," she said gently, "I need to be honest with you about your injuries. You have third-degree burns covering approximately 40% of your arms, from your shoulders to your wrists. We've done everything we can, but there will be scarring. Significant scarring." I remember nodding, or trying to. I remember thinking that I didn't care. Isabella was alive. Isabella was safe. Nothing else mattered. "We'll do multiple skin grafts," Dr. Chen continued. "We'll try to minimize the scarring as much as possible. But I want you to understand that your arms will never look the same. The scars will be permanent. Permanent. Forever. For the rest of my life, I would carry the marks of that night on my body." "But my daughter is okay?" I asked. That was all I cared about. That was all that mattered. Dr. Chen smiled. Your daughter is perfectly fine. You shielded her with your own body. Every burn on your arms is a burn she didn't have to suffer. You're an incredibly brave woman, Maria. Brave? I wasn't brave. I was just a mother. And mothers do what they have to do. The next 6 months were hell. Multiple surgeries. Skin grafts taken from my thighs and back. Physical therapy to regain mobility in my arms. The pain was constant, relentless, a companion I couldn't escape. And the scars. Oh, the scars. They were angry and red at first, raised and twisted, covering my arms like some terrible map of suffering. I couldn't look at them without remembering that night, without feeling the flames all over again, without hearing Isabella's screams in my memory. But every time I looked at those scars, I also remembered something else. I remembered that my daughter was alive. That she was safe. That she had escaped that fire without a single mark on her body because I'd been there to protect her. The scars were ugly, yes. They were painful to look at, painful to touch, painful to live with. But they were also proof. Proof that love is stronger than fire. Proof that a mother's instinct to protect her child is the most powerful force in the world. Proof that I had done what I was meant to do. Dr. Chen came to see me often during those months. She checked my progress, adjusted my treatment, made sure I was healing as well as could be expected. But she also talked to me. Really talked to me. These scars tell a story, Maria, she said once, as she was examining my arms during a follow-up appointment. They're not just marks on your skin. They're a testament to your love, to your sacrifice, to your strength. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But it was hard to see them that way when I looked in the mirror and saw myself transformed into someone I barely recognized. Isabella came to visit me every day in the hospital. She would sit by my bed and cry and tell me how sorry she was, how it was all her fault, how she should never have left that space heater on in her room. It's not your fault, baby, I told her over and over. It was an accident. These things happen. What matters is that you're okay. That's all that matters to me. She would hold my hand carefully, avoiding the bandages, and promise me that she would never forget what I'd done for her. I'll take care of you, Mom, she said, tears streaming down her 12-year-old face. When you come home, I'll help you with everything. I'll be the best daughter ever. I promise. I believed her. God help me, I believed her. The first few years after the fire were difficult, but we managed. Isabella did help me, at first. She was attentive and caring, always asking if I needed anything, always worried about my pain levels, always conscious of how the scars affected me. I went back to work as soon as I could. We needed the money, and sitting at home dwelling on what had happened wasn't helping anyone. My boss at the law firm was understanding. He gave me time to heal, to adjust, to learn how to live with my new reality. The night job, the cleaning job, I had to give that up. I couldn't do the physical labor anymore, not with my arms the way they were. We struggled financially, but we made it work. We always made it work. Isabella entered her teenage years, and things started to change. Slowly at first, so slowly I barely noticed. Little comments here and there. Small requests. Mom, could you wear long sleeves to my parent-teacher conference? Mom, maybe you should stay in the car when you pick me up from school? Mom, do you have to come to my school play? I mean, you can come, but maybe you could sit in the back? Each request was a tiny knife in my heart, but I told myself it was normal. Teenagers are embarrassed by their parents. That's just how it is. It wasn't about the scars. It was just about being a teenager. But deep down, I knew. I knew it was about the scars. I knew she was ashamed of me. I started wearing long sleeves, even in summer. I started covering up, hiding, making myself smaller so that my daughter wouldn't have to feel embarrassed. I told myself I was doing it for her, to make her life easier, to protect her from the judgment of others. But really, I was teaching her that I was something to be ashamed of. I was teaching her that my scars were something to hide, something shameful, something wrong. By the time she went to college, the distance between us had grown into a chasm. She would call once a week, dutiful but distant. She came home for holidays, but she never brought friends. She never invited me to visit her on campus. She kept me separate from her new life, her new friends, her new identity as someone who wasn't the daughter of the woman with the scars. After college, she got a job in marketing. She was successful, ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder with determination. She moved into a nice apartment, started attending galas and charity events, and networking with important people. Sometimes she would invite me to these events. "It would look good if you came, Mom," she'd say. "They like seeing family there." But she always had rules. Always had requirements. Make sure you wear something with long sleeves. Try to stand in the back during photos. If anyone asks about your arms, just say it was an old accident and change the subject. I followed her rules. I wore what she wanted me to wear. I stood where she wanted me to stand. I said what she wanted me to say. Because she was my daughter. Because I loved her. Because I'd burned for her once, and I'd do it again 1,000 times over if it meant keeping her safe, even if what she needed to be safe from was the very evidence of my sacrifice. But that night. That charity gala. That was different. I'd decided I was done hiding. Done covering up. Done pretending that my scars were something shameful. 15 years had passed since the fire. 15 years of healing, of learning to live with my new body, of slowly, painfully, coming to terms with what had happened and what it meant. And I'd finally reached a place where I could look at my scars and see what Dr. Chen had told me all those years ago. I could see the story they told. The story of love, of sacrifice, of a mother who would walk through fire for her child. So when Isabella invited me to the charity gala, some event for burn survivors, the irony of which was not lost on me, I decided to wear a sleeveless dress. I decided to show my scars proudly. I decided that if this event was truly about honoring survivors, then I would honor my own survival by refusing to hide anymore. Isabella called me the day before the event. "What are you planning to wear?" she asked, and I could hear the tension in her voice. "A blue dress," I said. "Sleeveless. It's elegant." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. "Mom," she finally said, her voice tight, "you can't. Not to this event. There will be important people there. People I work with. People who could help my career." "It's an event for burn survivors, Isabella," I said quietly. "I am a burn survivor. Why should I hide that?" "Because it's not about you," she snapped, and there it was. The truth is she'd been dancing around for years. "This is my event. My career. My reputation. Can't you just, for once, think about how this affects me? How it affects her. Not how it affected me. Not what I'd been through. Not what I'd sacrificed. Just her. Always her." "I'm wearing the dress, Isabella," I said, and I hung up the phone. So there I was, standing in the doorway of that ballroom, listening to my daughter mock the very scars that had saved her life, when her friends saw me and froze. "Those scars," the young woman whispered, and everyone turned to look at her. "I know those scars." Isabella's face went white. "Sophie, what are you talking about?" Sophie, that was her name, I learned later, was staring at me with tears streaming down her face. She walked toward me slowly, like she was approaching something sacred, something holy. "You're Maria Alvarez," she said, her voice shaking. "You're the woman my mother treated 15 years ago. You're the mother who ran through fire to save her daughter. The ballroom was completely silent now. Everyone was watching, listening, waiting. Your mother? I said, confused. I don't understand. Dr. Sarah Chen, Sophie said. She was your doctor. She told me about you. She told me your story. My heart stopped. Dr. Chen. The woman who had saved my life, who had helped me through the darkest time of my existence, who had told me that my scars were something to be proud of. She talked about you for years, Sophie continued, her voice breaking with emotion. She said you were the bravest patient she'd ever had. She said you never complained, never gave up, never let the pain break you. She said your love for your daughter was the most powerful thing she'd ever witnessed. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Could barely breathe. Sophie turned to look at Isabella, and her expression changed. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something cold. Something disappointed. This is your mother, she said to Isabella. The woman you've been mocking? The woman whose scars you're ashamed of? Isabella opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her face was red, her eyes wide with humiliation and shock. Do you know what those scars represent? Sophie's voice was rising now, filling the ballroom, cutting through the silence like a blade. Do you have any idea what your mother went through for you? Isabella stammered. I know, No, you don't know, Sophie cut her off, and her voice was harsh now, angry. Because if you knew, if you really understood, you would never, ever treat her this way. You would never make her feel like she should hide the evidence of her love for you. Sophie turned back to me, and her expression softened again. My mother died 2 years ago, she said quietly. Cancer. And in her last days, she talked about her patients, about the people she'd helped over the years. But you know who she talked about most? You. Maria Alvarez. The woman who loved her daughter so much that she wore her sacrifice on her skin like armor. Tears were streaming down my face now. I couldn't stop them. Didn't want to stop them. She said she wanted to find you, Sophie continued. She wanted to tell you how proud she was of you, how inspired she was by your strength. But she ran out of time. And when Isabella mentioned that her mother had been in a fire years ago, I never imagined. I never dreamed that it could be you. Sophie looked around the ballroom, at all the wealthy, powerful people standing there in their designer clothes with their champagne glasses, and she spoke in a voice that rang with conviction. These scars, she said, gesturing to my arms, are not something to be ashamed of. They're not something to hide. They're proof that love exists. They're proof that sacrifice is real. They're proof that some people will walk through hell itself to protect the ones they love. She turned back to Isabella, and her voice was ice cold. Your mother is a hero. And you should be grateful every single day that you have her. Because those scars on her arms? Those are the scars you don't have. Those are the burns you never had to feel. That's the pain you never had to endure. She took it all for you. And you thank her by making her feel ashamed? Isabella was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her face in black streaks. Her friends had backed away, looking uncomfortable, looking ashamed themselves. I'm sorry, Isabella choked out, but Sophie wasn't done. Don't apologize to me, Sophie said. Apologize to her. Apologize to the woman who gave you everything, who sacrificed her body, her comfort, her peace of mind, all so you could live without scars. Apologize to your mother. Isabella turned to me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not embarrassment. Not shame. But recognition. Understanding. Horror at what she'd done, at what she'd become. Mom, she said, and her voice was broken, shattered into a million pieces. Mom, I'm so sorry. But I couldn't respond. Not yet. Because there was too much pain, too much anger, too much hurt that had been building up for years and years, hidden behind my attempts to be understanding, to be patient, to be a good mother who didn't complain. You're sorry? The words came out harsh, bitter. You're sorry now? Now that someone else had to tell you what these scars mean? Now that you've been publicly humiliated in front of your friends and colleagues? Mom, please. No, I said, and my voice was rising now, all that buried anger finally breaking free. No, you don't get to please me. You don't get to act like this is just some small misunderstanding that can be fixed with a quick apology. The ballroom was completely silent. Everyone was watching us, but I didn't care anymore. I was done caring what people thought. I was done hiding. Do you remember that night? I asked her, and my voice was shaking with rage and pain. Do you remember being trapped in your room, surrounded by flames, unable to breathe, terrified that you were going to die? Yes, she whispered. Do you remember me coming for you? Do you remember me wrapping my arms around you, using my own body as a shield between you and the fire? Yes. Do you remember the smell of my skin burning? Do you remember my screams? Because I remember yours. I remember every second of that night, Isabella. Every single second is burned into my memory just like the flames were burned into my skin. I held up my arms, showing the scars to everyone in that ballroom, refusing to hide them anymore, refusing to be ashamed. These scars are not pretty, I said, my voice breaking. They're not easy to look at. They're twisted and ugly and they hurt sometimes, even after all these years. But you know what? I'd do it again. I'd walk through that fire 1,000 times over to save you. Because that's what mothers do. That's what love looks like. Isabella was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. But for years, I continued, for years I let you make me feel like I was wrong for having them. I let you convince me that I should hide, that I should cover up, that I should be ashamed of the very marks that prove how much I love you. And I did it because I loved you so much that I was willing to sacrifice my dignity just like I sacrificed my skin. I took a step toward her, and she flinched. That flinch broke something in me. My own daughter, flinching away from me. I'm done hiding, I said quietly. I'm done apologizing for surviving. I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel more comfortable. These scars are part of me. They're part of my story. They're part of our story. And if you can't accept that, if you can't be proud of the mother who loved you enough to burn for you, then I don't know what else I can give you. The silence that followed was crushing. I could hear my own heartbeat, my own breathing, too loud in the quiet ballroom. Then Isabella did something I didn't expect. She fell to her knees. Right there, in front of everyone, in her expensive designer gown, she dropped to her knees in front of me and reached for my scarred hands. You're right, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. You're right about everything. I've been horrible. I've been selfish and vain and cruel. I took your sacrifice and I turned it into something shameful. I took your love and I made it about my image, my comfort, my convenience. She was holding my hands now, those scarred, twisted hands that had pulled her from the flames, and she was crying so hard she could barely speak. I remember that night, Mom. I remember everything. I remember being so scared, thinking I was going to die. And then you came. You came through the flames like an angel, and you grabbed me, and you held me so tight, and I could feel how hot everything was, how much it must have hurt, but you didn't let go. You never let go. She looked up at me, her face destroyed by tears and regret. And what did I do? She continued. I grew up and I got embarrassed. I got ashamed. Not of the fire. Not of what happened. But of you. Of the evidence of what you'd done for me. I made your sacrifice about my discomfort. How dare I? How dare I? I was crying now too, tears streaming down my face, all the pain and anger and hurt of years pouring out. I loved you so much, I said. I loved you so much that I was willing to hide for you. But it was killing me, Isabella. Every time I covered up these scars, every time I made myself invisible, it was like going through that fire all over again. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve you. But I'm begging you, please give me a chance to do better. Please give me a chance to be the daughter you deserve. I looked down at her, this woman who had once been my little girl, and I saw both the child I'd saved and the adult she'd become. And I saw the potential for who she could still be. Get up, I said softly, and I helped her to her feet. We stood there, mother and daughter, in the middle of that ballroom, and I pulled her into my arms. The same arms that had saved her 15 years ago. The same scarred, twisted arms that she'd been ashamed of for so long. And she held me back. Really held me. Like she was the one saving me this time. I love you, Mom, she whispered into my shoulder. I love you so much. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of these scars, of what they represent, of your strength and your courage and your love. I love you too, baby, I said. I never stopped loving you. Not for a second. But love, I've learned, is not enough. Love without action is just words. Love without change is just empty promises. And Isabella knew that. She knew that she couldn't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. She knew that she had to prove that she'd learned, that she'd changed, that she truly understood what she'd done. The next morning, she showed up at my apartment with coffee and a notebook. I want to do something, she said. I want to make this right. Not just between us, but for everyone who's been made to feel ashamed of their scars, their differences, their evidence of survival. She opened the notebook and showed me pages of notes, ideas, and plans. I want to start a campaign, she continued. Using my marketing skills, my connections, my platform. I want to create awareness about burn survivors, about the beauty of scars, about the strength it takes to live with visible reminders of trauma. I listened as she outlined her ideas. Videos featuring burn survivors telling their stories. Social media campaigns celebrating scars as symbols of survival. Partnerships with hospitals and support groups. Educational programs for schools about empathy and acceptance. But I can't do it without you, she said, looking at me with earnest eyes. I need you to be part of this. I need you to tell your story. Because it's not just your story, Mom. It's our story. And maybe if we share it, we can help other people who are struggling with the same shame I made you feel. I was hesitant at first. The thought of putting myself out there, of making my scars even more visible, of inviting scrutiny and judgment, it terrified me. But then I thought about Sophie's words. About Dr. Chen wanting to find me, wanting to tell me she was proud of me. About how my story had meant something to them. Maybe it could mean something to others too. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The campaign launched 3 months later. Isabella called it Scars Tell Stories, and it was powerful. She featured me in the first video. I sat in front of a camera and I told my story. All of it. The fire, the pain, the surgeries, the scars. And I talked about the years of hiding, the shame, the feeling of being made invisible by my own daughter's embarrassment. I didn't hold back. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told the truth, raw and painful and real. And the response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out. Other burn survivors. People with scars from accidents, from surgeries, from self-harm, from abuse. People who'd been made to feel ashamed of their bodies, who'd been told to hide, to cover up, to pretend their pain didn't exist. They told me their stories. They thanked me for my courage. They said they felt seen, heard, understood. And slowly, something began to heal inside me. Not the scars on my arms, those would be with me forever. But the scars on my heart. The ones left by years of shame and hiding and feeling like I was something wrong. Isabella threw herself into the campaign with a passion I'd never seen from her before. She used her marketing expertise to get our message out there. She partnered with hospitals and therapy groups. She organized events where survivors could come together and share their stories. And she did something else, something I never expected. She started volunteering at burn units, visiting patients who were going through what I'd gone through years ago. She would sit with them, hold their hands, tell them about her mother who had walked through fire and come out the other side stronger. "I'm the reason my mother has these scars," she would tell them. And for years, I made her ashamed of them. I made her hide the evidence of her love. But those scars saved my life. And now I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure that no one else feels the shame I made my mother feel. Watching her transform, watching her grow into someone who understood the weight of sacrifice, the beauty of survival, it was like watching her be reborn. But there were hard days too. Days when the anger would come back, when I would remember all those years of hiding, all those times she made me feel like I was something to be ashamed of. One night, about 6 months into the campaign, we were having dinner at my apartment. Just the two of us, like old times. Except it wasn't like old times at all. Everything had changed. "I see you touching your arms sometimes," Isabella said quietly, watching me over her wine glass. "When you're thinking about the past. When you're remembering." I looked down at my scarred hands, my scarred arms. She was right. I did touch them sometimes, unconsciously, like I was checking to make sure they were still there. Still real. Still proof of what I'd done. "I touch them because they remind me," I said. "They remind me of the night I became someone different. Someone stronger. Someone who knew what she was capable of." "They remind me too," Isabella said, and her voice was heavy with regret. "They remind me of the worst version of myself. The version who was so caught up in appearances and image that I forgot what really mattered." She reached across the table and took my hand, her smooth fingers intertwining with my scarred ones. "I can't take back what I did," she continued. "I can't erase the years I made you hide. But Mom, I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that I understand now. That I see you. That I'm proud of you." "I know you are," I said. "I can see it in everything you're doing. In how you've changed." "But is it enough?" she asked, and there were tears in her eyes. "Will it ever be enough to make up for what I put you through?" I was quiet for a moment, thinking about her question. Thinking about forgiveness and redemption and whether love could truly conquer all the hurt that had built up over the years. "It's not about making up for it," I finally said. "It's not about balancing some cosmic scale. It's about moving forward. It's about choosing, every day, to be better than we were yesterday." "I'm trying," she whispered. "God, Mom, I'm trying so hard." "I know you are, baby. And that's all I can ask for." A year after that night at the charity gala, we held our first Scars Tell Stories conference. It was Isabella's idea, a full-day event where survivors could come together, share their experiences, connect with others who understood. We held it in the same ballroom where everything had changed. The same room where Isabella had mocked me, where Sophie had recognized my scars, where our relationship had been broken open and forced to heal. Over 300 people attended. Burn survivors, people with surgical scars, people with scars from violence, from accidents, from life's cruelties. They came from all over the country to be in that room together. I was the keynote speaker. Me, Maria Alvarez, standing on a stage in a sleeveless dress, my scars on full display, speaking to a room full of people who understood. "My name is Maria Alvarez," I began, my voice echoing through the ballroom. I'm 58 years old. And 16 years ago, I ran through fire to save my daughter's life. I told them everything. The whole story. Not just the fire and the scars, but what came after. The hiding, the shame, the years of feeling like I was something wrong. My daughter made me feel ashamed of these scars, I said, holding up my arms. And I let her. I covered them up. I hid them away. I made myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared entirely. The room was completely silent, everyone listening, everyone understanding because they'd been there too in their own ways. But that night at the charity gala, something changed. My daughter's friend recognized these scars. She knew their story. And she told everyone in that room what they represented. Not shame. Not ugliness. But love. Sacrifice. Strength. I paused, looking out at all those faces, all those people with their own scars, their own stories. These scars are not pretty, I continued. They're twisted and raised and they ache sometimes when the weather changes. They draw stares. They invite questions. They make people uncomfortable. I took a breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. But they're also proof that I survived something that could have killed me. They're proof that I loved my daughter more than I loved my own comfort, my own safety, my own skin. They're proof that I'm stronger than fire. The applause started then, building slowly at first, then growing into something powerful, something overwhelming. People were standing, crying, clapping, celebrating not just my story but their own stories, their own survival, their own strength. Isabella was in the front row, tears streaming down her face, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. And when our eyes met, I saw something I'd been waiting years to see. Pride. Pure, unconditional pride in who I was, scars and all. After my speech, person after person came up to me. They shook my scarred hands. They hugged me. They told me their stories. A woman in her 30s who'd survived a car crash and had scars covering her chest and neck. I've been wearing turtlenecks for 8 years, she said. But after hearing you speak, I'm done hiding. A man in his 40s who'd been burned in a workplace accident. My kids have never seen my back, he said. I always change in private, always keep it covered. But I think it's time they learned that their dad is a survivor. A teenage girl who'd been in a house fire, just like me, just like Isabella. My mom died saving me, she said, crying. And I have scars on my legs that I hate, that I'm so ashamed of. But you just made me realize, these scars are the last gift my mom gave me. They're her love, still protecting me. I held that girl while she cried, and I thought about Dr. Chen, about Sophie, about how our stories ripple out in ways we can't predict, touching lives we'll never know about. That night, after the conference, Isabella and I went back to my apartment. We were both exhausted, emotionally drained from the day, from all the stories we'd heard, all the pain and courage we'd witnessed. We sat on my couch in comfortable silence, drinking tea, letting the day settle into our bones. Mom, Isabella said finally, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you forgive me? Really forgive me? Not just saying it, but actually, truly forgiving me in your heart? I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, this person I'd literally burned for, and I thought about her question. I do, I said, and I meant it. I forgive you because I remember who you were as a child, before all the shame and embarrassment set in. I remember the little girl who used to trace my scars with her fingers and tell me I was brave. I remember the daughter who promised to take care of me. That girl is still in there, and she's finally come back. I'm so sorry it took me so long, Isabella said. I'm so sorry I lost my way. We all lose our way sometimes, I said. What matters is that you found your way back. She leaned her head on my shoulder, just like she used to do when she was little, before the fire, before everything changed. I'm proud of you, Mom, she whispered. I'm so proud of your strength, your courage, your refusal to hide anymore. You're the bravest person I know. Those words. Those simple words. They were what I'd been waiting years to hear. And I'm proud of you, I said. I'm proud of the woman you've become. Not the woman you were a year ago, but the woman you're choosing to be now. We sat there in the quiet, mother and daughter, survivor and witness, two people connected by fire and blood and love and scars. 2 years have passed since that night at the charity gala. 2 years since Sophie recognized my scars and changed everything. Scars Tell Stories has grown beyond anything Isabella and I imagined. We have chapters in 12 states now. We've helped hundreds of survivors share their stories. We've created educational programs for schools, for hospitals, for communities. And I've become something I never expected. An advocate. A speaker. A voice for people who've been made to feel ashamed of their survival. I travel around the country now, telling my story, showing my scars, refusing to hide. And everywhere I go, people tell me I've changed their lives. They tell me I've given them permission to stop hiding, to stop feeling ashamed, to own their stories. It's strange. The scars that I hid for so many years, that caused me so much pain and shame, have become the very things that connect me to others, that give my life meaning and purpose. Isabella travels with me sometimes. She tells her side of the story, the daughter who was saved, who grew up ashamed, who had to learn the hard way what those scars truly meant. I was given a gift, she tells the audience. My mother gave me life twice. Once when she gave birth to me, and once when she ran through fire to save me. And I repaid that gift by making her ashamed of the evidence of her love. But she forgave me. She gave me a chance to do better. And now we're here together, telling you that scars are not something to hide. They're something to honor. Our relationship is different now. Better. Built on honesty and understanding instead of shame and silence. She doesn't just love me, she respects me. She sees me. And I don't hide anymore. I wear short sleeves. I wear sleeveless dresses. I show my scars proudly, not because they're beautiful in the conventional sense, but because they're beautiful in the truest sense. They're proof of love. They're proof of survival. They're proof that some things are worth burning for. Last month, we got a letter from a mother in Texas. She'd been in a car accident with her son, and she'd shielded him with her body. She survived, but she had scars all down her back and legs. My son started middle school this year, she wrote. And he's been getting bullied because his mom looks weird. He asked me to stop coming to his school events. And I was going to do it. I was going to hide, to make myself invisible so he wouldn't be embarrassed. My heart broke reading those words. I knew exactly what she was feeling. But then I found your story, she continued. I watched your videos. I heard you speak about refusing to hide. And I realized, if I hide now, I'm teaching my son that I'm something to be ashamed of. I'm teaching him that the scars that saved his life are ugly and wrong. She went on to describe how she'd sat her son down and told him the truth. Told him that those scars were there because she'd loved him enough to let her own body take the damage. Told him that she was done hiding, done being ashamed, done apologizing for surviving. He cried, she wrote. He cried and apologized and told me he was proud of me. And yesterday, he asked me to come to his school for career day. He wants to introduce me to his class as his hero. The woman with the scars that saved his life. I cried when I read that letter. Cried because I knew exactly what that woman had been through. Cried because I was so proud of her for refusing to hide. Cried because her story was proof that what Isabella and I were doing mattered. I think about Dr. Chen often. I wish she could have seen what came from those dark days in the hospital, from her words about my scars telling a story. I wish she could have seen her daughter Sophie stand up in that ballroom and defend me. I wish she could have seen how her compassion, her understanding, her refusal to let me feel ashamed, planted seeds that eventually grew into something beautiful. Sophie and I have become close. She works with us now, helping to coordinate medical partnerships for Scars Tell Stories. She tells me I remind her of her mother, the strength, the resilience, the refusal to give up. My mother would have loved seeing you like this, she told me once. Standing on stages, telling your story, refusing to hide. She always knew you had it in you. She saw it even when you couldn't see it yourself. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Sophie hadn't been at that gala. If she hadn't recognized my scars. If she hadn't spoken up. Would Isabella and I have continued on the same path? Would I still be hiding, covering up, making myself invisible? Would our relationship have ever healed? I don't know. And in some ways, it doesn't matter. Because what happened, happened. And it changed everything. Last week, Isabella came to me with an idea. I want to get a tattoo, she said. Okay, I replied, wondering where this was going. On my arm, she continued. I want to get a tattoo that looks like burned scars. Not exactly like yours, but similar. So that when people see us together, they'll know we're connected. So that I'll carry a visible reminder of what you did for me. I was quiet for a long moment, thinking about what she was asking. No, I finally said. Her face fell. But Mom, I want to. No, I repeated, more firmly. These scars are mine. They're part of my story. You don't need to wear fake scars to prove your love or your understanding. You prove it every day with your actions, with your choices, with how you've changed. I took her hand, holding it against my scarred arm so she could feel the difference. Your skin is smooth, I said. Unmarked. Perfect. And that's how it should be. That's what I burned for. So you wouldn't have to carry these marks. Don't diminish that sacrifice by trying to take it on yourself. But I want people to understand, she said. I want them to know that I get it now, that I understand what these scars mean. Then tell them, I said. Use your voice. Share our story. But don't try to wear my scars. They're mine. And your smooth skin is yours. And both are beautiful in their own way. She cried then, understanding what I was saying. Understanding that she didn't need to hurt herself to prove her love, to prove her understanding. That her redemption didn't require her to suffer the way I'd suffered. I love you, Mom, she said. I love you too, baby. Always. If you're listening to my story right now, if you've made it this far, I want to tell you something important. Maybe you have scars. Maybe they're from fire, from accidents, from surgery, from life's cruelties. Maybe they're visible or maybe they're hidden. Maybe you've been made to feel ashamed of them, like there's something wrong, something ugly, something that needs to be covered up and hidden away. I want you to know this, your scars are not shameful. They're not ugly. They're not wrong. Your scars are proof that you survived something that could have ended you. They're proof that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you. They're proof that you're still here, still fighting, still living. My scars tell the story of a mother who loved her daughter more than she loved her own comfort. They tell the story of a woman who walked through literal fire and came out the other side. They tell the story of sacrifice and strength and survival. What story do your scars tell? Maybe they tell the story of a surgery that saved your life. Maybe they tell the story of an accident you survived. Maybe they tell the story of a time when you were hurt but refused to give up. Whatever story they tell, it's your story. It's proof that you're here. It's proof that you matter. For years, I let my own daughter make me feel ashamed of my scars. I covered them up. I hid them away. I made myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared entirely. But I'm done hiding. I'm done apologizing for surviving. I'm done making myself invisible to make other people comfortable. These scars are part of me. They're written on my skin in raised, twisted flesh. They ache sometimes when it rains. They draw stares from strangers. They make people uncomfortable. But they're also beautiful. Not in the conventional way. Not in the way that society values beauty. But in the truest, deepest way. They're beautiful because they're proof of love. They're beautiful because they're proof of sacrifice. They're beautiful because they're proof that I refused to let my daughter burn. And your scars? They're beautiful too. For whatever reason they exist, whatever story they tell, they're proof that you're still here. That you survived. That you refused to give up. So stop hiding them. Stop covering them up. Stop apologizing for surviving. Own your scars. Tell their story. Let them be visible proof of your strength. Because scars don't make you broken. They make you proof that you're a survivor. My daughter used to be ashamed of my scars. She used to ask me to cover them up, to hide them away, to pretend they didn't exist. But that night at the charity gala, everything changed. She learned what these scars really meant. She learned that they weren't something shameful, but something sacred. And now? Now she tells people about my scars. She shows them pictures of my arms. She tells our story to anyone who will listen. These are my mother's scars, she says. And they saved my life. She's learned that respect isn't optional. That empathy isn't something you can fake. That love requires more than just words, it requires understanding, acceptance, celebration of the whole person, scars and all. It took her too long to learn that lesson. It took a public confrontation, a moment of humiliation, a recognition from a stranger, to make her see what should have been obvious from the beginning. But she learned. She changed. She grew. And now we're here together, telling our story, hoping that maybe it will help someone else. Maybe another mother who's been made to feel ashamed. Maybe another daughter who needs to learn what sacrifice really means. If you're a parent with scars, with visible reminders of trauma, with something that makes you different, don't hide. Don't cover up. Don't make yourself small for anyone, not even for your children. Your scars tell a story. Let them be seen. Let them be heard. Let them be proof that you survived. And if you're someone who's been making another person feel ashamed of their scars, of their differences, of their survival, stop. Stop now. Look at those scars and see them for what they really are. Proof of strength. Proof of survival. Proof of a story that deserves to be honored, not hidden. My daughter learned this lesson the hard way. She learned it through public humiliation and painful confrontation and years of regret. But she learned it. And now she's using her voice, her platform, her influence to make sure other people don't make the same mistake. Scars Tell Stories isn't just a campaign. It's a movement. It's a revolution against the shame that society tries to make us feel for being survivors, for being different, for carrying visible proof of our pain. Every day, we hear from people whose lives have been changed by our message. People who've stopped hiding. People who've started owning their scars. People who've learned to see beauty in survival. And every day, I stand in front of a mirror and I look at my arms. These twisted, scarred arms that I hid for so many years. These arms that my daughter was ashamed of. These arms that saved her life. And I see beauty. Not because they're smooth or perfect or conventionally attractive. But because they're mine. Because they tell my story. Because they're proof that I'm a survivor. 16 years ago, I ran through fire to save my daughter. I let the flames consume my skin. I let the pain become part of me. I sacrificed my body so she could keep hers whole. And I'd do it again. 1,000 times over. Without hesitation. Without regret. Because that's what love looks like. That's what sacrifice means. That's what mothers do. My scars are not shameful. They're not ugly. They're not wrong. They're proof that love exists. They're proof that sacrifice is real. They're proof that some people will walk through hell itself to protect the ones they love. And if you've made it this far in my story, if you've listened to every word, I hope you'll remember this. Scars don't make you broken. They make you proof that you survived something that could have ended you. My daughter once mocked mine. Today, she helps others embrace theirs. Scars tell stories of love, sacrifice, and strength. And every single one deserves respect. Every single one deserves to be seen. Every single one deserves to be honored. Don't hide yours anymore. Let them tell their story. Let them be proof of your survival. Because you're still here. You're still fighting. You're still living. And that's beautiful. That's powerful. That's enough. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what part moved you most. Stories like this remind us that sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest strengths. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. I love hearing from our amazing community around the world.